Hi, I'm Joey Lott, and this is a video in the series that I call Ask Consciousness Anything. The purpose of this series really is to invite you to be done with suffering, to be done with seeking, and to actually wake up to who you are and to begin to live from this clarity and this peace rather than always struggling trying to fix something or get away from something or get toward something. Most of us don't realize how it is that we suffer, but it's possible for us to discover this by inquiring in our direct experience using a very specific, clear, and precise approach. We can simply turn and recognize who we really are. And we can begin to live from this, and this is a choice, and this is so important. You know, a lot of people get hung up on, is there choice, is there no choice? But this is really a huge distraction, because if you just are willing to take a look, this is the most important thing, just to be willing to take a look at your own direct experience. And so when I respond to questions in this series, the most important thing, or the way that you can get the most value from this, is to look for yourself. Don't just take this as some more information to file away in your mental space. Nobody needs that. It won't do you any good. You don't need more information. If it was just about information, then you could Google it, right? But that's not what you need. What you need is to actually look and recognize for yourself the truth of this in your direct experience. So the question for today is right over here. I'm going to take a look at it. It says, so rest as awareness is all there is to do? Question mark. Do I just keep resting as awareness as often as I remember? I'm always wondering, am I doing it enough? Am I doing it right? Is it leading to some end goal where I'll permanently abide as awareness? And this is such a wonderful collection of related questions, because this really, really illustrates what I'm sure many people struggle with. Maybe you who is listening to this perceive that you struggle with this sense of, am I doing it right? How do I know if I'm doing it right? Is there a goal to this? What am I really attempting to do here? How do I know if I'm doing it right? And so you can see that we've been trained, all of us have been trained to fixate on thought. So all of that arises in thought. Am I doing it right? What's the goal of this? What's in it for me? This is always fundamentally the question. What's in it for me? And so we can start to see that there's actually kind of like an operating system. There's the conditioning of the body-mind. And it's very reliable and predictable, right? Because we can see that that conditioning has been programmed there. But we can actually choose whether we give our attention to that and perpetuate it and sustain it, or we can choose something else. And that's the thing that most of us don't realize. Most of us think that we are actually victims. We believe that we are stuck. We believe that we're oppressed somehow by our mind, by our thoughts, by our experience, by our sensations. We believe that it's being done to us, like life is happening to us. And we're struggling trying to figure it out, because it feels like I'm suffering is what it feels, the thoughts about it. So the mind says this feeling means that I'm suffering and that it's urgent and I have to figure this out. I have to get something better. I have to get a better experience. And so we fall back to the mind, because that's all that most of us have really come to know. And so we turn to the mind habitually. But instead of doing that right now, just notice that you are. Notice that you are aware. And so you can do this in so many different ways. There's so many ways, and we can explore a lot of those in this video. But right now, just for a moment, you can actually notice your breath. So this is one way. This isn't a technique that you need to try to use in order to get something. But it's just an inquiry. It's a very simple inquiry that you can explore right now. So don't try to turn it into a technique to get something in the future, but just look right now and notice that you're aware of your breathing. And notice that you can actually just allow, if you're curious, you can just allow yourself to notice the breath without trying to do something about it. And you can notice that in order to try to do something about it, you actually have to turn to a thought. Because only a thought would suggest that something needs to be done. If we don't turn to thought and just allow our attention to stay for a moment with just observing the breath. So you could actually do this with any sensation, with any experience. But the breath is particularly available, accessible. And it's pretty obvious as soon as you just start to observe. Without touching a thought, without turning to another thought, you might still be aware of thoughts, thinking may be happening. But you can notice this power of attention that you can just, without it being restrained, there's not a restraining quality to this. It's very gentle, it's very light, but you can just notice that you can shift attention and you can just allow attention to shine on observing the breath. And then you can notice in that where attention habitually goes. You see the movement of attention to thought. And you may even get a sense of where in your spatial awareness. So we could argue that there is no location. This is true. But you can also notice that in your spatial awareness that there's a sense maybe of even a kind of location, right? So that it's like attention has to move to go to thought. Or you can just allow it to go gently, just fall gently, shine gently on the breath, awareness of the breath. So you can start to just see that movement of attention. You could also experiment right now with noticing the sound of my voice. So the sound of my voice, you are effortlessly aware of the sound of my voice. And you can even try not to be aware of the sound of my voice. So you could try, don't be aware of the sound of my voice. And it gets kind of silly because, of course, you cannot not be aware. Because awareness is effortless. It's always the case. It's your true nature. But you can start to notice where your attention is. So we play this little game where we say, oh, I'm not aware. Like we say, oh, I went to sleep and then I wasn't aware. But this is a deceit. It's not really true. And it seems like a white lie. It seems like so innocent, like it doesn't matter. But actually, it does matter in as much as it kind of literally matters. Because we literally are creating this, we're shaping this experience through the filter that we allow our attention to go to. And so if we are stuck in a particular fixation on a particular filter, and we actually come to believe that that's all that there is, we come to believe our ideas of ourselves, we come to believe that our feelings and emotions and sensations and thoughts should dictate who we are and how we will behave in the world. And we abdicate our responsibility and our power to choose. And so we start to believe that we're victims. So this is important because you can just, the reason that I'm pointing this out is that you can just start to see that movement of attention. And for most of us, it's so compulsive that we don't even realize that it's happening until we just start to inquire and notice that I'm always aware. Every time I check in, anytime, any situation, no matter what's happening, if I just pause for a second and notice, am I here? Am I aware? Then we look in our direct experience and it's totally obvious. We don't need to go to a thought for that. You don't need a thought to tell you you're aware. You are aware. You are aware of the thought. So awareness is primary. Awareness is always the case. You are always aware. That's why I'm saying that white lie, what seems like a white lie, is actually very harmful. If you allow yourself to believe that sometimes you're not aware without inquiring and finding out for yourself, you will suffer as a result of that, because you will be lying to yourself about who you are. You'll be lying to yourself and telling yourself that you're this separate thing that has all these problems and that you need to solve all these problems. And that's struggle, that's seeking, that's anxiety, that's fear, that's pain, that's suffering. Or you can choose to recognize that you have this power of attention, and you can allow that attention to rest. Or you can do as I suggested with the earlier inquiry, where you can start to play with shifting that attention and just noticing, just observing your direct experience. So you can observe, for example, the breath. And you can notice the tendency to go to mind, right? And if you're really observant, you'll see the connection between thought and breath. And you'll see when your attention is on thought, the breath is not very smooth, agitated, choppy. And the more you try to fix that, the more you try to turn that into a problem, do deep breathing exercises, the worse it gets, actually. In fact, most people who are doing deep breathing exercises, all they're doing is hyperventilating. It's not helping. Definitely not helping the body, not helping the mind. But it's where our attention is. And it seems like it's a paradox, but when you allow attention to rest here as awareness without moving to an object, without moving to thought, then what happens is everything starts to harmonize. Because, why? Well, we can start to see it's like frequency. There's frequencies, and the frequency of thought is this very gross frequency. And I don't mean gross like disgusting. I mean versus subtle. It's not subtle, it's gross in terms of the manifestation, right? So we've got apparent form, gross, thought, slightly more subtle but still pretty gross, feeling, slightly more subtle, still kind of gross, right? We can see that there's subtler dimensions, subtler frequencies. So if our attention is constantly at this frequency, we're entraining to the frequency of thought. But not only are we entraining to the frequency of thought, we're entraining to the frequency of habitual thought, of the conditioning of the body-mind. And if we're fighting with it at that level, what is going to happen? Nothing except war. All that does is perpetuate war. It just perpetuates struggle, stress, suffering, struggle, misery, sense of separation. All because we're just fixated on this gross level of thinking and specific conditioning of thinking and reactivity. So it seems paradoxical, but when you allow attention just to rest or to become more subtle, to allow it to begin to rest in subtler and subtler frequencies, then you start to notice. So one way to do that is you can just start to notice your direct experience rather than giving attention to thought, because thought tells you the name of the experience, right? It says, I like this experience, I don't like this experience. Here's what I have to do in order to fix it or get rid of it or escape from it, change it. I have to think better thoughts. I have to work hard. I have to do the right technique. I have to find the right teacher. I have to go to the right place. But we can allow our attention to come to our direct experience, which doesn't know. Our direct experience doesn't have any information about what this experience is called. It doesn't have the ability to muck around in the past memories and ideas to try to figure out what it's called or what the problem is or what we need to do about it. What we find in direct experience is that there's just a curiosity, an open curiosity. And that is the gateway that invites us, if we just remain curious and open, inquiring into our direct experience. And you notice that direct experience is very broad, very open, very inclusive. So we're talking about anything can be inquired into. Your thoughts, your sensations, your emotions, memories, anything. Any experience that can be directly experienced. But the key is the direct experience. So how could you directly inquire into thought in direct experience? It's not by giving attention to the content of thought. It's not by giving attention to fixated on a particular frequency. It's by recognizing what everything is pointing you to. Everything is pointing you to notice that you are aware, that it is arising in you, and that you have this power of attention that's creative, and you can give that attention to wherever you want. When you give that attention by resting as awareness, which means not giving attention to mind, not giving attention to any fixation of any kind, but to really just notice that you are and to just be curious about that. Then what happens is that you are actually entraining to the most powerful, subtle frequency that's inclusive of everything, that gives rise to everything. And this, as I said, it seems like a paradox, but from here, with attention resting as awareness, there's actually finally the possibility of choice. Prior to that, when you're overlooking the totality, the primary frequency that holds all, that allows all, and you're just fixating on this tiny little speck of negative frustration conditioning, it starts to become pretty obvious why you just keep seeing this, right? Like, you know that wherever you go, there you are. It's that expression. Well, it sounds like that's maybe a nightmare. If all you fixate on is this, and you believe that this is what you are, this little conditioning of suffering here. Everywhere you go, if you just fixate on that, you bring that with you, and it doesn't matter where you are, right? You could be at the Grand Canyon, and you're just looking at this. You could be at home, you're just looking at this. You could be making love, you're just looking at this. You could be eating a wonderful meal, and you're just looking at this. You could be going for a walk, and you're just looking at this. And this is what most of us spend our entire lives doing. But to rest as awareness, awareness of awareness, means to not fixate. So it's also, you could play with this. You could just notice that you have this power of attention that visual in the visual field as well. So you could hold your hand up and you could look at the hand, and you could notice that automatically the mind has its label. Right? It tells you, says what this is. This is hand, my hand. I like my hand. I don't like my hand. It's a good hand. I don't like the hand. I mean, whatever it has to say, you used to see. The mind has its commentary. And you can notice that your visual gaze actually plays a role in that. The quality in which you look at it. There's a kind of focus. But you can just soften that, and you can notice that that softening doesn't actually change the direct perception. So it's not like everything has to melt or turn into sparkles or have some kind of psychedelic experience, but just without the visuals having to change substantially, you can just notice a softening in the gaze, a softening in the way in which you're turning to thought, and you can actually just start to notice the direct perception. And you can see what's actually here. That what's actually here is not a label. What's actually here is not your judgments or your opinions or your conditioning, although that's arising as well. But those things are not actually about anything else. And as long as you're just fixated on those things, you overlook the totality of life that's here now. So I know I've gone way off here, but I'm going to come back. So all of these, am I doing it enough? Am I doing it right? Is it leading to some end goal where I'll permanently abide as awareness? You can start to see that these are all thoughts. And you have this power of attention, so you can give attention to the thought. And if you give attention to the thought, it might seem relevant. It might seem as though this needs to be answered. But you also have this ability, this power of attention that you can allow, you can just soften. You can just allow that attention to rest. You'll notice that it requires effort to focus on thought. See, attention has to come and move toward, grasp at. Requires effort. But it's very restful to just allow attention to be, to rest, to not go after anything. So if these questions are arising, you're aware of the question. That's all that's necessary. Just to notice that you're aware. You don't need to grasp at it. You don't need to solve it. You don't need to figure it out. These questions are really it's just the nervous system releasing, integrating through the power of awareness. So you'll start to see this tendency. If you allow attention to rest, and you just notice that you are, and you just rest here as being, as awareness, as consciousness, as spaciousness, and you notice the impulse to give attention to thought, and you can just allow that impulse to just do whatever it does, but it's all of it's pointing you just to recognize that you're still here, still aware, still spacious, still undisturbed by the movement and content. And so as you continue to inquire in this way, you just start to see that all of these thoughts, sensations, emotions, feelings, ideas, concepts, everything's just happening. It's arising, it's falling, it's appearing, it's disappearing. And as you do this repeatedly, then it just starts to get clearer that this is who you always have been. You've always known yourself to be this, to be here, to be aware, to be conscious. You've always known this, and it just gets clearer. So what's the end goal? The end goal is in the direct recognition. It's here and now. If you rest as awareness for this split second right now, don't grasp at the next thought. This is the end goal. When you turn to mind tells you, but what's the end goal? But it's because you're overlooking that you're already arrived. You're already here. You're already aware, awake, free, whole, complete, alive, receiving, being breathed. Your heart is already beating. You're already here. Only the mind needs something else. And it's not a real need. Only the mind suggests that there could be anything else needed. So I hope that was clear. The primary point here is that yes, resting as awareness, allowing attention to rest, to notice, just simply notice that you are, and to allow everything that arises to reflect that back to you, so that it's like everything is a mirror. Fear is a mirror. Anger is a mirror. Despair is a mirror. Excitement is a mirror. Desire is a mirror. It's all a mirror. And what I mean by that is that it's reflecting to you some aspect of yourself that has been pushed away or not yet seen. And because it's just reflecting to you, your only job, if you want to say you have a job, is just to receive that reflection. Not to try to do something about it. Why would you need to do something about a reflection? It's just a reflection. You see, but the problem has been that there's the reflection, and then we turn to mind, and mind says, ooh, I don't like that. That means something bad about me. It's like if you look in a mirror and you saw some kind of ugly face ugly to you. And then you say, oh no, I don't like that. And then you start drawing on the mirror, paint on the mirror, make a nice, pleasing to you face. You can spend all this time, and then you go, oh, I'm very happy with that. And then you go somewhere else and there's a mirror and you see this face again and you say, oh, no, I got to paint that mirror too. So we spend a lot of energy trying to change the reflections. And what we're overlooking is that it's just a reflection, and it's revealing to us ourselves as we are. And only the mind would judge that. Only the mind would say that's scary, ugly, bad, unacceptable, disgusting, horrible. Only the mind would say that. Because in truth, those things are total nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. You, as you are divinely perfect, whole, complete. There's no separation here. All you have to do is look to your own direct experience, and this becomes abundantly clear. The challenge, of course, is that, as I've already described, it's so simple, but most of us are so in the habit of turning to mind, we don't even recognize that we're doing it. So the challenge in this is to pause and notice in your direct experience repeatedly, over and over and over and over and over and over. And at first that seems like a doing. It seems like you have to do that. And then the mind says, yeah, but I thought there was no doer and no doing, and I'm not supposed to do anything, and this isn't pure enough, and I've got to find the other way. And so we're just seeking, right? This is the game of seeking. Say, that's not it. That's not good enough. I'll go find the right one. And, oh, I found the right one. And then we say, no, that's not the right one either. That's not good enough. And then we're on to the next one, on to the next one, on to the next one, on to the next one. But if you really hear what I'm telling you, what I'm proposing to you, and you look for yourself, you will see very clearly. Attention goes to mind. Only mind, only thoughts would propose that there's any problem at all. And then furthermore, that there's a problem with not enough purity or not enough non-dual purity to inquire in this way, or some other nonsense. Say, well, it's supposed to be, there shouldn't be anything progressive, so I shouldn't have to inquire repeatedly. And, you get to choose. I'm proposing, choose awareness. Choose yourself. Choose to look. Because, as I said, at first it seems like a doing, but as you continue to look, you will recognize in your own experience how much effort you have been making unconsciously, fighting and struggling with yourself, insisting that these reflections of yourself are unacceptable. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of energy, and if you feel exhausted in life, that's probably why. You start to notice how much effort. It's exhausting to give that much effort all the time, trying to fix something or get rid of something or hide from something or hide something. Most of us are trying to hide ourselves because we're afraid that who we are is unlovable, unworthy, not okay. And that's exhausting. So if you want true relief, if you want to begin to actually live life and be lived rather than just running all the time, then this is the most direct way to see that tendency to give attention to mind and to notice that every time that happens, you are aware of that. The more you do that, the more it comes alive in you and it becomes natural, because the awareness of that gives you the choice for the first time to stop being reactive and to actually just rest here and just be observant. Just notice in your direct experience what's actually happening. And this allows you to stop fixating on thought, especially the negative conditioning that you don't want. You can actually choose to stop giving your attention to that. Not to fix it, not to get rid of it, not to shame it, not to go to war with it, not to try to push it away. If it's here, but you don't need to be giving attention to it like, oh no, this is a big problem that I need to solve. You can actually just rest. And the more you rest, the clearer that becomes, the clearer the choice becomes, and the clearer it becomes that you are always already free. It just totally removes all the struggle, all the stress, all the suffering in life. All right, I hope that's been helpful. As always, if you have a question, you can go to joeylott.com/ask. It's joeylott.com/ask. And if you're interested in working with me to get coaching or find out about my current events, you can go to joeylott.com/now, NOW. All right. Thank you. Bye for now.